Hello everyone, welcome back to another Project Gladiator weather forecast. Today I'm going to be covering the weather for April 28th of 2023. Already you can see that there is an enhanced risk for Central Texas again. It seems like Central Texas just can't get a break from the severe weather and tornado threats. As for the tornado threat, you can see that there is another 5% chance for Central Texas, pretty much in what seems to be the exact same area as the other few, as well as the potential for really damaging winds and the potential for large hail. The threat is mostly going to be embedded with the potential for more spread out and potentially more isolated systems as this as further up further north, as well as more embedded threat along the enhanced risk line. But right now there is I'm expecting a large tornado um, potential risk right now. Um, the likely reason why there's a watch in effect for Central Texas in that area. If we look at the pivotal weather models, you can see storms already firing up. Uh, Thank you, pivotal weather. That is very great to know that you don't want to work. Um, you can already see storms firing up here. They seem to be they're kind of more isolated right now, but the threat that we're seeing is going to be more embedded than isolated. Uh, and the further out it goes, it will expand into a larger line down through the enhanced risk area and continue southeast, as well as the potential for more isolated systems up further north along the line. Um, and as for the the strong tornado potential risk that I'm talking about, why I think there's a 5% isolated 5% risk, uh, it mixed in with that 2% is because if we look at the Cape here, we can see that there is large amounts of instability um, right in this very small area, very small isolated uh, area. It's like almost like a hook almost. You see it forming here. Um, and it becomes even more clear whenever you look at the dew point. You can see right now the strong inflow here with a very prominent hook in the humidity here, with very strong humidity here, as well as a strong dry line that will most likely make the threat more again more embedded than isolated. If we continue forward, you can see that that dry line, that hook, is now become more embedded with the system. It's no longer there, but then you can also see the strong dry line here, making the threat again more embedded than it is isolated. But the dry line does get a little bit weaker the further north you go, as you can see. More spread out humidity the further north you go. Um, Making the threat more isolated the further north you go again. If we look at the wind shear, you can see large amounts of wind shear in the area that's affected right now. Um, uh, and there is very strong wind shear along the boundary too, and you saw the strong wind shear in the hooking area. As well as if we look at the updraft helicity, I haven't really used this, but you can see it's strong potential for updrafts in that area, in like the area that I'm talking about for the hook that's been showing up here. And I can even furthermore solidify this if we look at the supercell composite and significant tornado parameter. You see it right here within the hook, the very tip of the hook, a very strong potential here. And if we go to significant tornado parameter, it very strong potential, and then along the line too. So embedded tornadoes are going to be likely, as well as in that hook area, more of an increased risk in that hooking area for tornadoes to develop, and then that continues along that line and through the more isolated threat up north. Um, if we look at, what else can I look at that will solidify it even more? We can look at the lower level winds. Um, if we look at the lower level winds here, you can see strong amount of lower level winds allowing to fuel that the tornado potential that's down through central Texas right now. Um, Again, embedded tornadoes are likely, and as well as very large hail along the line, and damaging straight line winds, and even through the more isolated threat up north, there is the threat for the large hail as well. But large hail down through this line, very large hail is expected, as well as large hail through the isolated threat further up north, as well as damaging straight line winds for this, and potentially damaging more isolated winds through the more isolated threat, and those will continue eastward down through the Houston area, potentially impacting Houston and bringing the potentially the threat for embedded tornadoes, large hail, and damaging winds along with it down through the eastern coast, including Houston. If we look at the Cape again, you can see that it even furthermore solidifies it, because there is large amounts of Cape along that boundary line too. Very large amounts of Cape can is it just can takes it with it down there, and as well as large amounts of Cape with the isolated threat further up north on the dry line. Everywhere here, I'm expecting the threat for tornadoes to develop. Not so much, not as likely in these areas, but more likely for an embedded threat along this area, but still the potential for a more isolated threat for tornadoes further up north. Yeah, that's all I really had to cover. Again, there's the potential right now, as I'm recording this, there's the potential for a more increased risk for a tornado right now, as I'm recording this, with that hooking thing that you saw, that I showed you, as well as the potential for isolated tornadoes along the boundary line. And I will most likely go live today because of this large threat. And you can again, if we look at the significant tornado parameter, it's showing the threat for again tornadoes and that more isolated threat, and embedded tornadoes along the line here too, and that continues into Saturday, and that continues further into Saturday too, and the threat will decrease the isolated area as it continues eastward, but there still could potentially be the threat for tornadoes as it continues eastward. But it did look like, I think I remember it looking like it did become more organized the further east it goes, and yes, it does look like that, and potentially, again, the potential for possibly the threat for tornadoes as this large blob continues eastward through the Arkansas area. So yeah, that's really what I needed to cover for today. I'm most likely going live today because of this threat, and hopefully I will see you guys tomorrow with another forecast. And make sure to check out the socials for Project Gladiator.